Oh, don't forget the microphone. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day. It's been about 12 days since I streamed last. Lots happened in life. I had a baby. He is now, well, he's born on the 19th, so that's the last day I streamed. Last time we were here, my wife Amy was with me, and she had the baby 12 hours after that, so that was fun. So that was good, perfect timing. This chat program does not seem to be functioning properly. It says two are connected. Let's click on that to see what that says. Well, we may not have any Periscope chat today. If you all can let me know if the chat program is working. It seems to be some new chat program. Who knows if it's working or not? It's not my program. I didn't make it. So, with any luck, the chat will work. So, yeah, life has been good. Life has been hectic. But really, whenever I had James, I had the nighttime shift, which essentially meant I stayed up all night and watched him during the night. But this time Amy's doing that, and that means that I'm pretty much on a normal schedule, which is lucky. It's always good to be on a normal schedule. Oh, I forgot to start Facebook. Let's start Facebook. That's probably wise. There we go. If you don't make videos or don't stream or don't do any of that for any amount of time, you'll find that you completely forget how to do everything, which is bizarre, right? This always happens to me after the World Series of Poker, where usually I go out there for a month or so or longer, and I don't make any normal training videos. I come back, I can't even remember how to record the video, render the video, whatever. I have to relearn it every time, but that's okay. So yes, Amy has 4 months leave from work. She is a corporate energy lawyer, and they give 4 months maternity leave, so that's nice. Actually, they just upped it from 3, so I was lucky for her. All right, YouTube chat works, great. Seems like all the chats are working. If someone here is on Twitch, let me know. All right, so Amy's home with Mr. Thomas for the next 4 months, so that's gonna be fun. Hopefully we don't drive each other crazy. Someone asked me what my schedule was. Well, fortunately, I'm in a good spot in life where I can take 4 months away from poker. So I'm going to be staying home with her most likely. Between now and then, there's a chance I have to go somewhere if a major poker site decides to work with me. If they do, I'm happy to work. But otherwise, I am probably going to be staying home for about 4 months, being a daddy. So that's going to be nice. My next tournament, as far as I know, is going to be the World Poker Tour Tournament of Champions and the tournament right before that at Aria. That's probably going to be the next time I play. So that's good. Can I elaborate what me and Charlie Carroll were talking about on Twitter? Charlie Carroll has this idea that game theory optimal strategy should not be taught to young poker players or new poker players. And I don't know. I don't even know what he's trying to get across. I think a lot of people generally agree that you need to learn to play well. Certainly you don't need to learn with solvers. Like if you all are members of pokercoaching.com, I try to teach you a simplified version of game theory optimal that is easy to implement. It's very important to understand that any strategy you develop needs to be easily implementable. And if you are a beginning poker player, right? I'm not trying to teach the best players in the world, right? I'm trying to teach players who are small and medium stakes players who want to become high stakes players, who want to win significant money from poker. You need to teach a strategy that is implementable. And I think that's what most people generally do. Some people just like to get to I'm not going to say argue. They like to debate, right? I'm not much of a debater. I did not study debate in school at all. Certainly I'm not anywhere near qualified to debate. And I think a lot of people, for some reason, like to choose sides. And if anyone studies with me, you know that I recommend learning to play well. Oh no, why is this not going down? Learning to play well. And then also, what is this new message button? Learn to play well, but then also know how to adjust, right? You should always be playing the strategy that works best against your opponents, whatever that means. And against very good players, you're playing a strategy that's going to try to break even against them, right? If they're playing perfectly, and if they are not playing perfectly, then you need to be adjusting to take advantage of them. Did they really make a new chat feature that I have to now scroll down on? There has to be a way to do this. Let's see, settings. What in the world did I just do here? Back to the chat, please. All right. Anyway. But yeah, so I don't really know his point. And so no Winter Borgata Poker Open. No, I just said I'm not going anywhere for probably until, well, the World Poker Tour Tournament of Champions is at the end of May. So it's actually very good timing. So yeah, that's it. Why is this not working? Let's see. Maybe I need to go to, maybe I need to do alignment bottom? Let's see if that works. I don't think that did anything. Well, whatever. We'll figure this out. Okay. Congrats on the baby. Thank you all very much for all that. So far, everything's going great. Sometimes you're lucky. Okay. I'm going to the World Series for the first time for the Big 50. Any advice for staying at the Rio? I would tell you not to stay at the Rio. You will, you're probably not going to have a great time staying at the Rio. I would definitely suggest you stay elsewhere. It gets you out. It allows you to see Vegas. It allows you to have fun. And if you're at the Rio, all you can really do is play the World Series of Poker and not a whole lot else. And there are better places to stay. Let's see. Scrolling down once should suffice. Okay, I've scrolled down once. I clicked the new message button. It's not going away. I don't know why. All right. Implementable is best for sure. Yeah, I mean that's what I've tried to do, and so far we've had lots and lots of successes from students at poker coaching. So I'm very, very happy with that. Let's see. Currently sitting at the Hard Rock in Tampa at a 1-2 table. Well, good luck. Have fun. Am I playing the World Series this year? Definitely not all of it. I haven't played all of it since James arrived. The problem with the World Series of Poker is it's mostly small buy-in tournaments. And the issue with small buy-in tournaments is that they're just not worth traveling to play. Now, obviously there is value in them, but there's also value in being home with your family, right? And again, like I said, I'm at a point in life where that is important to me, more important than playing a random poker tournament. And it's not worth it, right? So I have other things to do, and also I have work to do, right? I run pokercoaching.com. That takes a lot of time and effort, and I have to do that work at some point, and there's no reason for me to play poker all the time. I just don't need it in my life anymore. I don't want to play poker all the time. I've learned that playing poker some is great, but playing poker all the time is not so great. Did you try to strategically plan the conception of the child so I could still play the World Series? Well, yeah, of course. All right. What's going on with this chat? Scrolled all the way down. The best thing you can do to improve your game is exercise good bankroll management. Yeah, quite possibly. Do I agree? I mean, obviously you need to use good bankroll management. The thing is, though, is if you're a bad player, no amount of bankroll management is going to make you a winning player. It may let you survive for a while, but if you're a losing player, you're going to go broke. That's just how it is. If you play against people who are better than you on a regular basis, you're going to lose all your money. Now, if you're a good player, you still need to have good bankroll management, because if you put all of your money at risk in one individual session, you're going to go broke a lot of the time, right? And yes, bankroll management is important. Go read the Bankroll Bible at jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll. Let's see. Ryan says, perhaps have poker coaching hands be not all the way through to the river. We do have some of those coming up. A few people also asked for more deeper or late stage tournament hands. We've added more of those. So all that's coming up. Which book would I recommend for someone looking to improve overall? Ooh. This one right here. Mastering Small Stakes, No Limit Hold'em. This is the book you need. Lots and lots of range analysis, learning how to think and develop fundamentally sound strategies, and then how to adjust to take advantage of your opponents. All right. People are talking about Melody, but I'm not saying... Oh, here's Melody. Let's see. Okay. Melody's playing at Hard Rock. Yes. Okay. Rio is run down. I wouldn't say it's necessarily run down, but there are definitely better places to play. You mean click the button? Yes, the problem is I don't want to scroll all the way. I just wish it would update like normal. I don't know why it's not updating like normal. Okay, today, one of you out there asked for information about satellites. They specifically asked, how do you play when 20% of the field gets money. And I think it's more important to talk about how do you play when you're playing a satellite. For those who don't know, a satellite is an event where, let's say, 100 people buy in, and then X number of people win a seat to a bigger tournament. Or they have these survivor tournaments as well, where, say, 1 in 10 people get 10 times their buy-in. So it's effectively a satellite. A survivor tournament is a satellite. So there's no purpose in trying to win the tournament, right? Because if you win, you don't get any more than the person who barely squeaks in the money. So gathering chips is not nearly as important as it is in a regular tournament where you have to win the tournament to get the most money, right? So first things first, you need to know what percentage of the field gets a prize. This is obvious. This is easy. If the buy-in to the main event is, let's say, $3,500 and you're playing a $350 satellite, well, 1 in 10 people get a seat. If you're playing a $700 satellite, 1 in 5 get a seat. So that's usually easy to figure out. One thing that was written by Bernard Lee in my book here, Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. Bernard Lee, there he is right in the middle of the page, his chapter was on satellites. He has a formula in there to discuss how you roughly know how many chips you need to get in the money. So that strategy is number of entries needed for a seat, let's say 10, right? We're playing a $350 or $3,500, times the number of starting chips. Okay, so let's say we start with 5,000 chips. Okay, let's say, so 10 times the number of starting chips, 5,000, 50,000, divided by 10 equals the big blind of the final level. And that's because Bernard Lee, who's played tons and tons of satellites, has realized that the average stack when you get in the money is usually about 10 big blinds. Not always, but usually. So average stack when you get in the money is usually about 10 big blinds. Knowing that, you can use the formula of entries needed for the seat times the number of starting chips divided by 10 to know the final level of the tournament. Roughly. Plus or minus level. And it's very important to know what level the satellite's going to end, because if you know when the satellite's going to end, then you know roughly how you need to manage your chips, right? So if you know that you already have, let's say, 20 big blinds for the final level, you don't really need to do much at all because you're kind of a lock to get a seat. So if you know you're locked to get a seat, you need to be playing much tighter, right? Jeff Gross in the chat. Good morning. Hello, hello. Let's see. Kevin says, you played lots of satellites at the World Series. You just have to play ABC Poker. You say that's a one table. So, yeah, okay. So, yes. Okay, so knowing the goal is not to get all the chips, should you alter your strategy? Well, in most satellites, they're going to pay something like 20% of the field or 10% of the field or maybe 5% of the field, right? So in those cases, you have a very big incentive to get chips initially and then kind of try to lean on the players who are trying to get in the money. So what a lot of people do incorrectly, in my opinion, is they play really tightly. Like, they'll make big folds early in the tournament with the idea of, okay, I need to survive. And of course, survival is more important in these tournaments. But also, you need to get at least one double up. Now, you can double up by just slowly increasing your stack or by winning an all-in hand. But once you get one double up, then you can start applying small amounts of aggression, or are you applying aggression in lots of small pots so that you're never really risking a huge amount. And as long as your opponents don't realize that you're never really playing a big pot without a good hand, you can kind of run over the table. And if you run over the table, that's great, right? Now, obviously you're still going to have to win some hands here and there, but let's say you find yourself in a situation where you know you have 50% equity, and the pot odds say you need to win 40% of the time. In a normal tournament, you're just always all in, right? But in a satellite, you need to be folding in a lot of those spots. So you can very often pot control more in satellites because you really don't want to play big pots with your non-premium hands. And that's going to lead to your betting ranges often being way more polarized, right? You're either going to have very good hands or very bad hands. And as long as your opponents don't realize what's going on, you can have lots and lots of very bad hands. And that's going to allow you to slowly chip up over time to where you're never really at risk. So once you double up, that's when you need to start avoiding the big risk. But whenever you're just starting out in a satellite or any tournament, you don't need to be too risk averse. I think a lot of people are so incredibly risk averse to the point that they just blind out. And you will blind out, right? I mean, think about this, right? If the average stack when you get in the money is 10 big blinds, and let's say 1 in 10 get a seat, that means you'll have one big blind if you somehow sit there and blind out, right? Whenever you go to get in the money, and obviously that's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to play with a one big blind stack. You must make something happen. So don't think you can be so incredibly tight. All right, so let's see what else do I have here. Yeah, steal lots of weak blinds. Very often you'll find players who are just nitty, right? They are really trying to sneak in the money. And by picking on those players' blinds specifically, that will allow you to continuously chip up a little bit to where you don't really have to take too many huge risks. Once you're nearing the bubble, we have a question here. Super passive table, average. You have King Jack suited under the gun +2 with 3 big blinds. I would be all in because you have 3 big blinds, assuming we are not anywhere near the money. Or even if we are kind of near the money, with 3 big blinds, if you're the shortest stack, I'm not going to say you need to be playing overly aggressively to try to double up like you do in a normal tournament, but in scenarios like that, where let's say average is 10 big blinds and there are 9 people at the table and 7 get in the money. If average is 10, next, that's the spot where maybe you could consider folding, but because you're in such early position, you're probably going to need to get a double up. So I would probably be all in with that with King Jack suited under the gun +2 for 3 big blinds. But if you are in a situation where there are like two or three other shorter stacks, you should probably fold. Or if you're in a situation where everyone is just all in every hand because they don't understand what's happening, you should probably fold. So it's not just as easy as how do you play this specific hand. It's how is everyone else playing and how does that impact your strategy. All right. So last time I played a satellite, I won my seat, by the way. It was to the Aria 10K last year. There was literally nothing else going on this day besides a $1,000 satellite. So I opted in, and it turns out the field was a lot of weak players, and then like 10 of the best players in the world because they were bummed out there was nothing else going on either. And we ended up playing. I got in the money, like I said, and at the end of the tournament, there were, I think, 7 or 8 seats were given, and an odd hand came up where the 2 big stacks decided to collide in a spot where I think the shorter of the 2 big stacks made a huge mistake. So in this hand, big stack raised under the gun, second biggest stack raised under the gun, off of like a 70 or 80 big blind stack. Next, the biggest stack then 3-bet from middle position. So it went to, let's say, 2.5 big blinds, 7.5 big blinds. Gets back around to the initial raiser, who had pocket kings. He decided to re-raise small. Okay? That's a scenario where if he's going to play this hand, he needs to be all in or he needs to call. Because when you re-raise small, now the biggest stack gets to go all in. Because in this scenario, 70 big blind stack, like 100 big blind stack, and then a bunch of 10 big blind stacks. Right? In that scenario, that second biggest stack does not want to be getting it all in with anything. And in reality, he should maybe even just fold to the 3-bet, which sounds a little bit insane. Maybe not even open the hand, right? You should probably open it. But when you get 3-bet in that scenario, you're trying to not play for all the money. And is there any board where you're really happy with kings? And the answer is generally no, right? So if stacks actually are 100, 70, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, however many 10s, and you know you're 1 or 2 spots away from getting in the money, you need to be very, very nitty with that second stack. So anyway, he re-raised small, big stack went all in. He snap called him with the kings, and the big stack had ace-3 suited. The ace got there, and then that big stack, who had 70 big blinds, who was essentially a lock to get his satellite seat, he had like literally $9,500 in equity. Now he's out. He had 0. And what happens then is that instead of one of the 10 big blind stacks bubbling, or two of the 10 big blind stacks bubbling, now one of them is going to be getting in the money, and that's very, very beneficial for them. So, don't do that, right? In satellites, you really, really, really need to realize when you have a seat locked up. And in that scenario, when you're a middle stack, you definitely do. So, you can play around with programs like ICMizer. You can see some videos of me playing with that. You can go on YouTube, find them. Search Jonathan Little ICMizer. And I'm not necessarily playing satellites in my videos, or satellite structures in my videos, but you can adjust ICMizer to have situations where it will tell you the optimal strategy for when you are playing in a satellite structure, and that's going to be very beneficial for you to practice. It's very important to practice away from the table. If you just try to get all of your experience from actually sitting and playing, you're going to be way behind the curve. And I mean, like that hand with kings is a good example, right? The guy who had kings is actually a very experienced player, but he just punted it away, right? And that was a very, very big mistake. All right, let's see. Nelson said, you messed up winning back-to-back main event satellites by calling it all in with ace-king when you could have folded into the seat. Yeah, I mean, see, this is the tough thing, right? It's hard to know when you can fold into the seat, but if you use that formula I gave you, you will know when you can fold into a seat, because if you know you're going to have 8 big blinds, 2 levels after you know the tournament's likely to be over, well, you're kind of a lock to get your seat. All right. What do you think about someone who's in love with the game and also good at the game, who can manage their bankroll well, but is under 8? Oh, if you're too young? I mean, I don't know. You should probably follow the rules and regulations of wherever you live. That said, look at what a lot of other people have done. Not me, though. Believe it or not, I actually started playing completely legally when I was 18 years old. All right. Let's see. You got my Montreal package. Great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm trying to think where to even send you all. If you want access to all of the major hands I played at World Poker Tour Montreal, where I took 8th place, send me an email, support@pokercoaching.com. We have lots and lots of good content there. All right. Do you think it will help you online? Oh, definitely. Definitely. If you think you're good at the game, well, you might not be that good. Oh, that's actually a good consideration. You need to know you're good at the game, right? You know you're good at the game by keeping very good track of your results. Why ever do a satellite isn't having the money itself better. Yeah, I have articles on this, why I generally think satellites are not a good way to go about building a bankroll. They're a good way to gamble hard, but they're not a good way to build a bankroll. They're a good way to get rich quick, but parlays in general are very, very bad for bankroll management, because think about this, right? Let's say you know you're 1 in 10 to get a seat in a satellite. Let's say you're 1 in 8. And then you know you're 1 in 8 to cash in the tournament. That means you're 1 in 64 to get any money back. And then to win, let's say you're, I don't know, let's say it's a 500 person tournament, so you're 1 in 500 to win. So you're 1 in 8 times 1 in 500. That's 1 in, 4,000 to win a big amount of money? It's not very often, right? Why would I play satellites? Well, if you're playing games that are much lower than you would normally play, that's just fine, right? Like the $1,000 game I gave was a good example where I'm bankrolled for $10,000 buy-in tournaments, but there was nothing else going on at all that day. The cash games didn't look great, and the satellite looked really soft. So you can go and you can sit there and you can make your $50 or $60 an hour, whatever it is, and that's fine. I would generally recommend that if you are going to play satellites, try to satellite into things that are maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times your normal buy-in. Don't gamble too hard, unless, of course, you understand that you're not playing to try to win the most money possible. You're playing for the experience, right? A lot of the online poker sites satellite people into tournaments with the idea that you're going to go get a great experience. And there's nothing wrong with that, but understand that you are trading perhaps long-term profitability for a really fun time. And you know, that's a fine decision for most people. Most people do not play to win the most money possible. We discussed that plenty of times here. How do you hit the bad beat jackpot? Well, play hands that can make the bad beat jackpot hit, right? Play all your suited connectors. Again, you're trying to hit the bad beat jackpot in exchange for long-term potential. All right. I'm reading all of your chats. Have I ever worked at Gold Strike in Tunica? No, I have been to the Gold Strike in Tunica, though. All right. How long should we be studying the lessons on pokercoaching.com on a daily basis? Depends on how much time you have and your goals and your priorities, right? What are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to accomplish getting as good as you possibly can, as quickly as you can, you should be studying a ton. If you're trying to just have a fun time and get a little bit better, not nearly as much. But we have lots and lots of homework challenges and quizzes at pokercoaching.com that will keep you busy for a very long time. Let's see, you've seen mid-stacks punted off on the bubble many times or just clueless. The real questions only arise when you are in the 2 to 3 shortest stacks. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the most high-pressure situations. And those are the ones where, you know, if you bubble, it's very, very detrimental. But you need to study those spots, right? And very often, either your opponents are usually playing way too tightly to the point that it really is a blind out war, and you can do some math quickly at the table and see if you're going to lose the blind out war, right? Like say someone has 8 big blinds and you have 6. Well, you're going to blind out first, right? So you have to be a little bit more inclined to try to make something happen. But if they're obviously going to blind out, and we're on the bubble, I'm saying, if we're on the bubble and you have 8 big blinds and the other guy has 6 big blinds, and he's obviously just going to straight up blind out, you should straight up blind out too, right? Because you're going to survive longer than him. He has to win a hand before you have to win a hand. And then if he wins a hand, say he blinds down to 2 big blinds and gets it in with whatever and wins, well, you're going to have 2 big blinds, then you get to get it all in and try to win. But he has to go first, right? So that's obviously good for you. What are realistic poker goals to set for your viewers? Well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish in life, right? I don't know what your goals are, right? If your goal is to become the best poker player in the world, that's very different than if your goal is to win $50 an hour from poker. I can't tell you how to be the best player in the world because I'm not there. I can definitely tell you how to win $50 an hour, though. Let's see. You got my newest book for Christmas. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Jordan. Why is there a 4-minute lag on the chat? It makes it really hard. I don't know why there's a 4-minute lag on the chat. There shouldn't be. Maybe you're saying that, remember I have this scroll feature? This is saying that you said this at this time. I don't know why it's working like this. I'm going to send them an email whenever we're done here. How should a beginning player, not a complete newbie, learn how to read hands? Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em and PokerCoaching.com. You called the river with the absolute nuts at the bubble of a satellite. Well, if you have the nuts, then you win, right? 1658 test. It seems to be working at the right time, right? How did the guy who won the $500 cash game tournament do? I don't think they've played yet, actually. We have to follow up with that. That is a good question, and I need to follow up with that. All right. So let's talk about making deals on satellite bubbles. I satellited into a 25K in Florida. When was this? I guess a year ago, give or take. And in this situation, let's say there were 6 people left. I had the big stack. And let's say I had 70 big blinds. Everybody else had 30, and then one guy had 10. Okay? And most of these players were recreational players. So in that scenario, everybody said, hey, do you want to just give the player who bubbles some amount of money? Let's say $10,000, $25,000, whatever it was. And everyone agreed to this besides me, obviously. And even if I was one of the 30 big blind stacks, I would not have agreed to anything like this. So what they ended up doing is I think, I didn't really, first off, if everyone's not involved in the deal, you can't do the deal. It's very, very unethical. I mean, for example, let's say we're playing, actually, I'll tell you another story in a second. I'm going to tell it to you now. This was in France at the World Series of Poker Europe. It was a big satellite. They must have paid 30 people. So, let's say 30 people are getting paid. When there were 32 people left, a guy gets a hat and starts walking around and saying, here, give me 100 from everyone, or 200 or something like that, and we're going to give it to the players who bust next and next, and everybody else gets their seat. And 80% of the people agreed. So this guy just starts collecting, let's say, 200 from each person, gets around to me, I say, I don't know what you're talking about, absolutely not, because I don't want the bubble. I mean, the bubble ending is fine, but I had a big stacker, I'm not going to give $200 away. And they were just like, fine, okay, you're not in this. But that kind of thing is very, very unethical, because now, first off, you don't know who is involved necessarily, right? Because I can't keep track of which 80% of the people now have some sort of weird chop deal. And it changes the structure of the game completely in a way that has not been agreed to. And the floor man didn't do anything. I thought it was absurd and egregious, and every other good poker player completely agreed. In this tournament in Florida, though, I was fine with it. I said, as long as I am in for the chop, I will put in no money, and if I happen to be the one that bubbles, then I get that money. And they all agreed to it. So I think everyone put in, I think the short stack put in 5K, and I think the 3 short stack put in 5K, the other 4 people put in 2,500 each. So how much is that? That's 15K. So the person who bubbled gets 15K. And I said, as the big stack, I'm going to put in no money, but if I bubble, I get that 15K. And they didn't like it. They grumbled. The tournament director there was a good, legitimate tournament director. They understood that you can't make a deal unless everyone agrees to it. So, you drive a little bit of a hard bargain and you get the deal. All right, what are my poker goals for 2019? I don't really have any. My goals are to be a good dad, run a good pokercoaching.com site for all of you to make you all better. My goals are to study a lot. And in terms of winning things and putting in volume, that's not what I need to do in life right now. Which is kind of lucky. Sometimes you're lucky. A lot of people make poker goals like, I want to win a World Series of Poker bracelet, or I want to be #1 player in my region, or something like that. And a lot of these goals you can't really control. You can have volume goals. I think volume goals are a good thing, and I don't really have volume goals because I don't want to be playing a lot of poker. I have many more important things at this point in life, and that's fine, right? It's okay. It's not a priority. It's important to understand what your priorities are and to keep your priorities in perspective. And right now, with a 2-year-old and a 2-week-old, my goal is to be home and support my wife. And fortunately, all of you like my site, pokercoaching.com, and that allows me to do that. So thank you for that. But whenever I do go play poker, I'm going to be playing a lot of poker, and that's going to be fun. I have 3 book projects I am supposed to be working on, which I'm going to be doing that over the next 4 months. And so that's more the goal, is make sure I get that finished, because that's going to... 3 books in 3 months is a bit of work. All right. Is it realistic to support a family needing to make $100K a year playing tournaments? Pocket maces. That is purely a math question. All right. Let's say you're going to have 50% return on investment. Okay. That means you need to put in $200,000 worth of buy-ins with a 50% ROI to make $100K a year, not counting for expenses. So let's say you actually need to put in $300K in buy-ins, give or take. So you need to buy in for $300,000 over the course of a year. And on average, you'll make that $100K. Now, on average means some years you're going to win $1 million, some years you're going to lose. If you put in for $300K, I'm trying to think about what my worst year is. I think my worst year has been like minus 50%. So if you put in $300K, you may lose $150K. So that's the risk you have to take to play tournaments. Now, you could also play very low variance tournaments, like say you just play local tournaments, but then it's hard to put in a lot of volume, right? So you should definitely not count on making any amount of money from poker each year in tournaments. I mean, my own results. I mean, I've had like minus 200K years, and I've had plus $1.5 million years playing, pretty good amount of tournaments. And that's with buy-ins being like 10K or 25K at the biggest. And that's just what you should expect. Let's see. You casually play and want to improve. Well, if you casually play and want to improve, you should do lots and lots of study, right? I'm writing a book helping Michael Acevedo write a book. He is like the game theory expert. And he didn't play any poker for like 7 or 8 months because he was just studying the whole time. He was solving poker using PioSolver and Munker Solver and compiling all the results and making it easily accessible to people, which we're going to be releasing at some point in the near future. And he didn't even play for like 7 months because his goal was not necessarily to make money. His goal is to solve poker, right? If that's your goal, that's a very different thing than actually playing, right? But then, Scoop came around. He was almost finishing up most of the work, and then he like won one, took second in another, and I think he took like third in the $500 tournament last week. He was just crushing the game because he solved poker, right? All right, you have a minimal budget. Well, go to pokercoaching.com and sign up for a week for free. You're doing the right things, but you feel you can't see where you are going wrong. Well, if that's the case, you need to get a coach. You need to have someone who is good, who can tell you what you are doing incorrectly if you can't figure it out yourself. I have the Inner Circle, pokercoaching.com/Inner Circle. That's a good way to get very cheap private coaching from me. Every 2 weeks we have a call-in show where you can call in, ask me whatever questions you have, and I pinpoint holes in people's games, and that's great. We have a lot of people who have been there in it for a year or more, and they started off struggling to beat even games like 1-2. Now they're playing 5-10 and winning $100 an hour. So having someone tell you very clearly what you're doing wrong and how to fix it is very beneficial. Where can you get the Acevedo book? Go to dnbpoker.com, and it's called Modern Poker Theory. Let's see. When you know you're not going to play for a long time, will you plan to study more or less than usual. Oh, I typically study a lot more when I'm not playing because I have more free time, right? And whenever I am ramping up my... Like, say I know I'm going to go play the World Series of Poker, often I will be studying specifically things like that during that time period. So, yes, I try to ramp up my study before I go play, but at the same time, I generally do a lot of studying anyway, and that studying for me is mostly looking over the notes of other very good players and watching training videos by some of the best people in the world. I'm not doing a whole lot of actually crunching numbers myself because other people have already done that, right? It's important to make sure you're utilizing your time well. And if you can pay someone to run the numbers for you and then they present you the data, it's generally going to be better. Is 50% ROI realistic in soft tournaments? Well, that's up for you to decide, right? Certainly it's realistic for some people. Was that in France where the guys were trying to do the weird bubble thing? Yes. Doesn't surprise you one bit. How do you think a good poker study schedule should look? Again, it depends on what you are trying to accomplish. Let's see. Dustin says you have volume goals. You have a day job. You want to put in 50K hands. 50K hands is not really that much. I would definitely tell you to get to where you can play something like 4 tables at a time or more. And if you're putting in like 1,000 hands an hour, give or take, if you're playing something like Zoom, maybe let's say you put in 500 hands an hour. It's not actually that many hours of play to get 50K hands, right? And you say you want a 4 table. I mean, this is just a math problem. Again, I'm not going to do math for you here. All right. Congrats on the baby. Thank you. You accepted that cash games are essential for controlling variance. Well, the question is, do you need to control variance, right? A lot of people think that you have to have just a steady upswing all the time, otherwise you're doing things incorrectly. And I generally disagree with that. If you're properly bankrolled, right? The thing is, a lot of people are not properly bankrolled. They get into poker with no money and they just think they're always supposed to have a lot of money at risk at all times. And doing that's going to be very, very detrimental to you. And if you have 100 buy-ins or 300 buy-ins, as you probably should have for games with high variance, then yeah, you're going to go on 100 buy-in downswing sometimes, and that's just fine. The thing is, a lot of people try to spend their poker winnings on a regular basis, right? And I definitely think you need to be in a spot, especially before you become a pro, where you're not really needing to draw that much from your bankroll. Or you have a lot of money set aside to where if you fail, it's not the end of the world, right? Like say you do not win for a year. That doesn't need to ruin your life. That needs to be a bad thing. But at the same time, you can have money set aside where all your bills are paid for that year. And you move on from there. Something weird's happening with my hair. Oh well. All right. Do I recommend playing small field tournaments? Yes. Go to jonathanpoker.com/bankroll. jlpoker.com/bankroll. Your coach, who's a full-time player, says focusing on small fielded tournaments online gives you a greater edge. That is definitely not true. You have a higher ROI as there are more players in the field. And if you're bad, you have a lower ROI as there are more players in the field. And that's because you have more time to win and or lose money in large field tournaments, right? So your edge is always higher as fields get bigger. However, there's way more variance as fields get bigger. So you have one part of this equation, right? There's less variance in small field tournaments, but your edge is lower. For example, take a 9-handed sit and go, right? It's thought that a 5 or 10% ROI is great in 9-handed sit and goes. But if you had 10% ROI in a multi-table tournament, you'd just be like barely a winning player, right? So understand that what you wrote, what was written here, Lewis, was not accurate. Looks like my office is becoming the baby room based on the new color. Yeah, thanks. We have Ghost of M in the chat. Super moderator. Welcome. Glad you're here. I have to figure out this button. Oh, well. Let's see. Like, look at this. You all can't see this on Instagram and I guess on iTunes, but there's this button here that's covering up this chat, so I can't read it. Hello from South Africa. Welcome. Hope you're having a great day. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about satellite strategies. I mean, you always need to ask yourself, what is the goal of this game? Whatever game that is. And what are your goals, right? And you need to make sure that your goals make logical sense in relation to the game. And, for example, if your goals are to slowly grind up a bankroll, playing satellites is definitely not what you need to be doing because, like we said earlier, you're only going to cash 1 in 64 times, give or take, which is just not that often, right? So that's good if your goals are to get rich quick or lose your money. And in general, to be a long-term professional, you do want to ideally keep variance low, especially whenever you are not expecting to have any sort of humongous edge. And I think a lot of people get in their minds that they have to play whatever the biggest tournament is. And that's not a good mindset, right? I mean, it's a fine mindset if you aren't trying to win money long-term, but to win money long-term, you want to take it slowly. Now, we mentioned the times where I've played satellites, and usually that's when they are significantly smaller than my normal buy-ins. But satellites are a great way to get in big tournaments, to be able to win a trip, right? Win a vacation. And I think that's a very good thing. They definitely have a place in poker. But understand the goal of the game that you are trying to play. And a lot of people forget when they're playing satellites that the goal is to get in the top 10% of the field or the top 5% of the field or whatever it is. And don't forget that because that's really, really important. Do you prefer live or online poker? I don't know. I like both. Both are good. I try to mix it up. I like variance. I like different variants of poker. I like different venues. I like changing scenery. Do you really need a 4-bet bluffing range and $500 buy-in tournaments at Borgata? Well, if people are going to fold too much, of course you do. If people are going to call you every time, then no. All right? If your opponents are very bad, figure out what they do incorrectly and then adjust to take advantage of what they're doing wrong, right? Like, let's say at Borgata in your $500 buy-in tournaments, people always fold to 4-bets because they think it's always aces. Well, then clearly you should be 4-bet bluffing a ton, right? And you should not be 4-betting with your aces, right? You are maximally exploiting them. If they're always going to call your 4-bets because they just don't care and they all have that 9-7 suited and they're going to call you every time or go all in or whatever, then you need to be 4-betting much wider for value, right? You can be 4-betting ace-queen or pocket 9s for value. So, you need to figure out what your opponents are doing wrong. And Kevin has it right. Go to pokercoaching.com and you develop that range. That is exactly what we do there. We explain how to play against players, how to adjust. And I think one of our most recent homework questions was actually something to the effect of, we're playing against the nit and we get to the river and the nit's like check, raise, and turn and then jam the river. What should you call the nit with? And the answer was almost nothing, right? And that's because the nit's not bluffing. The nit just has a good hand. He thinks he has the nuts. So if the nit's putting his money in, it means he has the nuts. We have a homework question coming up. It's the exact same scenario, but you're against a maniac or a very loose and aggressive player. And against a very loose and aggressive player, well, you need to be calling a ton, right? So we're going to have the exact same question. We change one thing, the opponent, and your strategy is just completely different. Is poker really solved in the upcoming book? Obviously, you cannot list all of the answers to poker in one book. Also, again, we're talking about adjusting here, right? Adjusting is how you beat the vast majority of poker players. Unless you're playing against the best players in the world, you should be taking advantage of whatever they do wrong. All right, I think I'm going to be done today. My wife told me to be done by 11:15, and here it is 11:17. I have something to go do. We're going to be changing a little coffee a little bit. We're going to be doing this now Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. You may ask, why not do it all 5 days? Because life has become more hectic. And I need to get in the gym, and this is during my gym time. You're taking up my gym time, everyone. And I need to do that. So yes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, unless I have to change it, which I thought I was going to be at 9 a.m. today, and I'm not. Things come up. So that's that. That will be fun. Are there certain times of day that are better to play online and or live? The answer is definitely yes. Keep track of your results and you will see. Please extend code. Poker. I don't know what you're referring to, but please email me at support@pokercoaching.com with whatever you would like. Say you have a calling station at your table who is getting very lucky. Do you continue to play? Yes. The fact that he's lucky is irrelevant. Being lucky is completely irrelevant. You don't stay lucky long. And of course, like, listen, if someone's just winning every hand, sometimes they're going to win every hand, and that's okay. You can't think, oh, he won last hand, so he's going to win the next hand. Remember, they shuffle the deck of cards, right? They shuffle them, and it's random. All right, let's say you're losing at the moment. You've played a lot of cash games lately, but you're losing money in whole. How do you know if it's variance or leak in your tournament game? Well, tournaments and cash games are very, very, very different. I highly suggest you focus on one form of poker, especially when you're starting, when you're growing a bankroll, and when you don't even know if you are a long-term winning player, right? You need to focus on one thing. Find a game that you know you can beat. How do you know you can beat this game? You don't say, oh, I know I can beat cash games. You get tons and tons of data. You play a lot of cash games. You figure out your win rate, and then you know if you're a winning player. Let's say you know you can beat 2-5 no limit for $50 an hour. Good, right? Now we know that we can spend our time playing $50 an hour, or spend our time making $50 an hour, and then from there, you can start branching out. You know, you realize, okay, if I lose $5,000 playing tournaments in a month, trying to get good at that, is that okay? Well, if you're making $10,000 and losing $5,000, that's probably a bit much, right? You also have to ask, why do you want to play the tournaments to start with? And same thing, if you're a tournament player and you know you're good at tournaments, why do you want to play cash games to start with? And there are answers for that, right? Like maybe you want to have the chance to get rich quick. It's a good reason to play tournaments. Maybe you want fame and notoriety, right? I mean, that's the reason to play tournaments as opposed to cash games, because it's way more public. Maybe you don't want fame and notoriety, right? That's a reason not to play tournaments. So figure out your goals. And usually, one game fits into that way better than others. Peter, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. Forgot coffee. Yeah, I had no coffee today. Actually, I went to the diner this morning with my parents before they went out of town. So I already had my coffee. All right, I'll try to get this chat program fixed for tomorrow. It's thoroughly annoying to have to continuously scroll down. But I guess that's okay. That's what we have to deal with. You know, actually, you used to not be able to scroll up. So I guess it's nice that you can scroll up, but I don't want to have to scroll down. All right. Have a great day. I will be back Wednesday, 9 a.m. Thanks for being here. Good luck. Have fun. Be nice to someone. Enjoy your time. That's the only thing we can't get more of, right?